Hi class, welcome to the online session, and we are going to discuss today the glandular structure. So let's start uh, with the slide on the colon. And wait, okay, so for the colon, we would see uh, the lining epithelium, which would be simple columnar. Okay, so this would be the simple columnar lining epithelium there. What would be important for us would be this area. Okay, so this would be the crypts of Libercan or the intestinal glands. And this type of gland, or if you're going to look into the morphology, this would be called the this would be the simple tubular glands. Okay, so simple tubular glands. So that's the makeup of this particular gland. Okay, so these are crypts of Libercan, intestinal glands, and simple tubular type. Okay. Next, we go to the duodenum. So the duodenum, if you remember, we have taken this up. Uh, this would show the simple columnar lining epithelium with a microvilli, and then underneath this would be the lamina propria. Same with the colon, it also would possess presence of glands there, this one, okay, there. So these are simple columnar glands. Okay, so these are simple columnar glands, and um, the simple columnar glands, its type of morphology would be simple tubular. Okay, there's another gland type present in the duodenum, and it's located in the deeper layer. Okay, the deeper layer is called the submucosa, and you can see the presence of glands in this particular layer. These are what we call as the Brunner's glands, which is very unique to the duodenum. Okay? So you can see that they are also similar to the intestinal glands, but this particular gland is not simple tubular. So these are compound tubular by morphology. Okay, so these are compound tubular by morphology. Okay, next we go to the pancreas. So for the pancreas, what is important here is that you would be able to identify two areas. So number one would be the pancreatic islet in this particular magnification, which is the low power. We can see these islands of cells which are uniform in appearance. There. So this is the islet of Langerhans, which would uh, be composed of cells that would secrete different hormones like the insulin, glucagon, somatostatin. Okay. Um, but for now, it is not a glandular structure, but it is an important structure found in the pancreas. What is important for you to remember would be these small assigner structures. Okay, and if the pancreatic islets, this one, would be the endocrine or would perform the endocrine function of the pancreas, these assigner structures would be responsible for its exocrine function. Okay, its exocrine function would be to release the enzymes that would be used for digestion. So these glands would be of the compound acinar type of morphology, and these are serous acini. And notice the color of the granules present within the cytoplasm of the acinar cells. Okay, so these are granules. Okay, that would be secretory granules that would be used for enzyme digestion. So next, we go to uh, the sublingual gland, the parotid gland. So the parotid gland is the largest among the salivary acini. Okay, so this is the scanning view. You can see the presence of fats or fiber adipose tissue that is seen adjacent to them. Uh, First, we look into what would be the acinar structure present. Okay? It is similar to the pancreas in a sense that this particular gland would be composed mainly of serous acinar cells, forming the serous acinus. Okay? We can also notice the presence of the granules, the secretory granules. And again, this would be forming the saliva, and the saliva would contain enzymes. Okay. Aside from that, we also need to identify the presence of the ducts. So the smallest duct that we can identify in the salivary gland would be called the intercalated ducts. And they would emanate from each sinus. And here you can trace the intercalated duct. Okay, so they are lined by flattened to cuboidal cells. Okay, and it will go into this particular duct, which is larger, as well as this one. These are the intralobular ducts. Okay. And in the intralobular ducts would then go into the interlobular duct. So the smallest would be the intercalated, followed by the intralobular, and the last will be the interlobular. Okay. So again, this particular salivary gland would be pure serous acinar composition. Okay, it would show a pure serous acinar composition, and by morphology, the acinar structures here would be compound tubulo-acinar. So if we go to the submaxillary, okay, it has a different acinar composition. So if the parotid is pure serous, this would be a mixed type, which would be composed of serous and mucus. Okay. Okay. So there would be the presence of some mucus acinus, and then we also have the serous, identified with the secretory granules present. And there would be a modification here of the mucus acini, uh, and this would be identified with the presence of serous acinar cells, okay, at the edges of the acinar structures. And this is what we call as the Cirrus Demillon, wherein there's a cap of serous acinar cells over the mucus acini. So you would see a lot of Cirrus Demillons over here. Although in the book, it it says that this is simply an artifact which we won't be able to see if we are going to perform a frozen section. Okay? So this one would be a mucus acinus, and then there's the presence of a cap of Cirrus acinar cells. So in the practical exam, this should be labeled as Cirrus Demillon. Okay? So take note, if you do not see the presence of Cirrus capping, then you call it as mucus acinus. But if you see Cirrus capping, this one, Cirrus capping, or this one, you call this one as Cirrus Demillon. Okay. And then you can also look for the presence of the intercalated duct. So again, this would be the appearance of the intercalated duct. Okay, so again, they would emanate from the acinus. Okay, so they are characterized by having flat to simple cuboidal lining, and they would uh, drain out into the intra-lobular ducts, and then they would go out into the interlobular ducts. So the interlobular ducts would be identified with surrounding fibrocollagenous tissue or connective tissue. And then we have the sublingual gland, which is still part of the salivary glands. So this particular salivary gland would be mainly composed of mucus acini with some serous acinar structures. So this is a mixed type of salivary gland with predominant mucus acinar features. So if we're going to uh, look at the cells, at the acinar structures, mainly it's composed of mucus acinar cells. Okay? This one is a Cirrus Demillon. Okay? You would see a cap of Cirrus acinar cells, and this would be the mucus acini. So take note that in both sublingual and submaxillary or submandibular, Cirrus Demillons can be appreciated. And then we go to the skin. Uh, in the skin, we would see the presence. First, we go to the scalp first. So this is identified with a lot of hair follicles. Okay, so these are the hair follicles. And there's a gland that is associated with each follicle. And this would serve as uh, a lubricant for our hair. Okay? So these are what we call as the sebaceous glands, which always would accompany each hair. Okay? So each hair would have the sebaceous gland, it's a holocrine gland, and this is the erector pili muscle, which would also accompany each hair follicle. Okay? With regards to the sebaceous gland, it is simple branched acinar. Simple branched acinar. Okay? Um, let's try to see if we have something in the brown skin. Okay. So what you see in the brown skin are, okay. So this would be the lining epithelium, which is stratified squamous epithelium. You see some sweat glands over here. Okay. The sweat glands here are what we call as the ecrine sweat glands. Okay. So they produce the sweat for thermoregulation. Um, there are two components here. You have this would be the duct component. You have the secretory component. Okay. For the secretory component, you would see the presence of the epithelial and myoepithelial component characterized by a spindly appearance of the myepithelial cells. So if you want to appreciate the ecrine glands more, then we can go to the next slide, which is called the axillary skin. Okay. So here you would see more of the sweat glands because the axillary area would be, I think it has a lot of those glands. Okay, so the main reason why they are there is for thermoregulation for the ecrine sweat glands, and the apocrine sweat glands would produce fatty sweat fluid that would contain also hormones. Okay, um, so there are two types of sweat glands present. We have the ecrine, and then we have the apocrine. Okay. For the ecrine, okay, okay. So notice the size comparison of the apocrine and the ecrine. So let's start first with the ecrine because that is what we have discussed in the previous slide. Okay, so we have two components again. We have the duct. This would be the duct system. This would be the secretory system. Okay, so always if you see the presence of myepithelial components, that would be the secretory component. Okay, and then the apocrine is seen having larger lumen there, and these are lined by cells that appear to be cuboidal and would possess a very intense acidophilic or eosinophilic cytoplasm. Okay, so these are what we call as the apocrine cells. So, so those are the slides that we have for this session. So kindly finish your manuals and kindly check on the details in the book. Okay, so thank you and uh, good day.